Quick product shout out before we get started with the video. Shout out to Erin for this Curvvy University shirt that I got on. Definitely check her out on her Instagram at Curvvy Nurse _apparel. She definitely has merchandise, whether you're a nurse, a LPN, a STNA, or even if you're just anybody working in the healthcare field. Even if you're a student who's even studying under healthcare. She definitely has merchandise that you want to check out. So again, I will leave her information in the description box down below. And make sure when you hit her up, tell her that Tarika Monique sent you.
The worker, she worth it. Go girl, go girl, go girl, ambition. Go girl, go girl.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about how I survived my first semester of PTA school. This first semester was definitely a very interesting and trying semester. Just to go ahead and go right into it, I had 4 classes a semester. I had fundamentals, functional anatomy, introduction to physical therapy, and intro to therapeutic exercise. So functional anatomy. Honestly, out of all the classes, I would say functional anatomy was probably like my favorite. For the simple fact that functional anatomy is completely different than what you would learn in anatomy. In regular anatomy, you just learn like muscles, bones, that's it. In functional anatomy, you get more of a review of what you learn in anatomy. But again, the key word here is functional. So not only are you going over bones and muscles, but now we're going more in depth about based on the placement of your bones and muscles and where the muscles insert and where they originate on those specific bone structures, how does it allow your body to move? And it was just a really, really interesting class. I loved my teacher. She was amazing and awesome. But I would say that even though it was my favorite class, it was also a lot of material in that class. And when I say material, I don't mean just like the lecture stuff. I also mean like each week we had a muscle quiz on top of a lecture quiz. So on Tuesdays we would have a lecture quiz based on what we learned the previous week. And then on Thursday, not only will we have lecture, but then right after lecture we would have a muscle quiz. And our muscle quizzes consisted of, she would give us like a group of muscles to study for the week. And then from there, I had to make sure we knew the origin of the muscle, where it inserted, the action of the muscle, and the innervation or the nerve that was connected to that muscle. Also, with functional anatomy, it was really cool because you also got introduced to some material as well. So like for instance, we had to do what's called goniometry. So this right here is a goniometer. It's pretty much used to measure your active and or passive range of motion when it comes to certain parts. So whether it's measuring knee flexion, hip extension. Not only did we do goniometry, we also did manual muscle testing, as well as palpations. So you had to know like where certain things was in the body, and she asked you to point it out to her. You had to be able to find it. Like your olecranon process is right here. What else? Oh, like your occipital protrudence is like in the back of your head, things of that sort. So, okay, and then next there's fundamentals. So the class itself is pretty much what you're being taught. You're being taught the fundamentals of physical therapy and aspect of being a physical therapist assistant. So we learned about like the parts of a wheelchair. We learned about gait, body mechanics, things of that sort. So pretty much you're learning like the fundamentals, like the foundation of what you encounter when working in the physical therapy field. That class, I would say, was definitely fun, but while it was fun, it was honestly, out of the 4 classes I took, the most stressful. And I would say it was the most stressful because it was a lot. I would just say like it was a lot of confusion when it came to communication between the teacher and the students. But with that minor setback, overall, she was a great teacher. She is definitely very passionate. Like when I say passionate, I mean she is very passionate for this field. But even with that class, oh, and with functional anatomy, another thing that was stressful was the pop quizzes. Because as you know, it's a pop quiz. So we knew how many pop quizzes we have for the semester, but we would never know when they would just like spring up. So it was like hard to like kind of predict. So it's like you definitely had to be on top of your stuff in order to make sure that you passed those pop quizzes. Another thing that fundamentals taught me this semester was active listening skills. Like when I tell you our teacher highly, like she pressed when it came to active listening skills. Like she made sure that from week 1, we was practicing our active listening skills. So like we had homework. Instead of like she would be that teacher like told you once. And after that, if you didn't hear it, that's on you. Otherwise, she wasn't repeating herself. It was like, this is the homework, it's due on this day, boom, and that was it. Okay, and then I had introduction to therapeutic exercise. Now, for introduction to therapeutic exercise, honestly, that was probably like the chillest class that we had. Like, not to say that the other classes weren't chill. The teachers were cool, but only like this teacher in this class, she was like one of those teachers that like, okay. Like she ain't had, you could tell she was not stressed this whole semester. Like even if she didn't show it. But pretty much with that class though, it was a pretty simple class. All you did was come in, and pretty much with her, she just like lectured based on the PowerPoints. Like that's it. She pretty much read off the PowerPoints. And most of the stuff that we did was during lab period. Before I talk about the last class, just to allow y'all, like just to let y'all see like how lab practicals were, and especially like based on each class how they was ran. Pretty much with the lab practical, again, they're all like mini mock clinicals, except therapeutic introduction to therapeutic exercise went more in depth, and I will get to that in just a little bit. But pretty much like you would go in. And so for like functional anatomy, you would go in, and for our lab practical for that class, you had to perform 1 palpation, 1 manual muscle test, and a gomiometry measurement. So how you would do that is they would have like all the stuff, like these little strips on a piece of table that you would just pick one from each category. And it will all be at random because, you know, they're all facing down. So you obviously didn't know what you was going to pick. And then from there, you would just, you know, perform the 3 things that you got. Of course, for every practical, no matter what class you was taking, you had to introduce yourself. So say your name, introduce yourself as a student physical therapist assistant, get consent to work with them, and then ask for 2 identifiers, so like, you know, their full name and date of birth. So like I said, functional anatomy, you had to perform those 3 things, and then that was that. And then on top of that, for our lab practical, we also had a stations portion. So that was like the written portion of the lab. So you would go around to different stations and have rest breaks in between, and there would be a question there. And pretty much you would write on your sheet of paper what the answer to that would be. And for fundamentals, how that lab practical went, it was pretty much, again, it was set up in stations, except these stations were more hands-on. So you have a stair station, had the bandaging station. We also had a sliding board transfer station. We had an assistive device measuring station, a wheelchair station. We also had gait training. So you would go through each station and you was timed. Pretty much we had 6 minutes per station to finish everything. And if you went beyond 6 minutes, that was a fail for that station. And obviously for each lab practical, we had retakes. And so from fundamentals going on to therapeutic exercise, well, introduction to therapeutic exercise. Pretty much for that lab practical, this is why I say it was more like a mini clinical. Because the way that our teacher did it was that you would come in and you would be paired up with somebody. We got to choose our partner. So it was you and another classmate. and y'all would take turns doing y'all thing. And how she did it was based on what you picked out the jar. So like for me, I had got a knee injury. So my patient had trouble with knee flexion. So based on the injury or the condition that you got based on like the patient, she would sit there and ask you questions like, okay, this patient is now 8 weeks post surgery. How would you go about stretching their knee? Okay, your patient, or like another thing would be like your patient comes in complaining that their hamstring is tight. Show me how you would go about stretching their hamstring. So it was like pretty much she was asking you questions, but it was like you was actually like working with the patient as if like they came to you for treatment, which was completely different from how my fundamentals and functional anatomy lab practicals were set up. But otherwise, like, that was that. The only thing I would say about the lab practicals was that even though they were manageable, they was also very stressful as well, for the simple fact that you could be that person that be book smart and get an A or B in your lecture portion of your class. But for this program, I'm telling you now, if you did not pass your lab practical with a 75% or above, not only did you just fail the lab part, but you failed the whole entire class. Like, so you can have the A in lecture, but if you failed that lab practical, you don't get just, oh, I got an A in lecture and an F in lab, and so overall that probably give me like a low B or a high C. No. If you failed that lab practical, you failed the whole entire class, to where like, try again next year, but you not finishing this semester. Like, that's just how our program is. Like, in order to pass a class, not only do you have to pass lecture, but you also have to pass your lab portion too. But y'all would think lecture is hard. You could be good at lecture, but if you don't know how to apply what you learned, baby. Okay, and then the final class that we had this first semester was Introduction to Physical Therapy. Pretty much it was just the introduction class. It was pretty much kind of like the history kind of sort of class. So we learned about like the history of physical therapy and how it came about, to like learning about fraud and abuse, PT and PTA relationship, communication, and most importantly, documentation. So in this class, it was heavily stressed that not only did we learn like the background history of documentation and why we need to document when we're working with patients, but we also practice what's called a SOAP note. I'm not going to get too much in detail about it. That's a whole nother video. But pretty much we were practicing how to write SOAP notes. So on top of just writing SOAP notes, this is also the class where we was introduced and used a lot of medical terminology and abbreviations. Now granted, we use medical terminology and abbreviations for all of our classes, but for Introduction to Physical Therapy, we like really got introduced there first. So it was like to where she gave us like our teacher gave us like a list of approved abbreviations that we would use in our program. And pretty much whenever you write a SOAP note, in order to like make sure that it's short and simple and straight to the point, you definitely used a lot of abbreviations and medical terminology. So yeah, that was pretty much it for that class. So yeah, overall that was my first semester in PTA school. Like I said, it was a lot of material to learn in 16 weeks between the 4 classes, but I can definitely say that I learned a lot. Like, when I say I learned a lot, I definitely learned a lot. Based on our program, this first semester that we just got through is technically called the weed out semester, because of the 4 classes that we take and how they give us so much information crammed into 16 weeks. It was a lot. Like, I would definitely say, like, I know I cried. Me and my classmates, some of us cried together. We was literally stressed out. It was a lot of tears and a lot of sweat, a lot of anxiety. Like, it was a lot. Honestly, I'm going to say this. If you're a prospective student looking to get into a PTA program, I'm telling you right now, it's not easy. It is definitely not easy at all. Like, I have an undergrad degree in biology, so I have a bachelor's degree already, but honestly, being in this program, for it to be an associate's degree, I feel like this should be a master's degree to me, because this program is definitely a lot harder than when I did my 4.5 years at Bowling Green, and that's just me. That was my view of my first semester at PTA school. I do plan on giving updates for each semester, so definitely be looking out for an update of how second semester went coming May. Because, yeah, like I said, second semester starts in January, so I won't be done until May. So look for a video around, like, somewhere in the summertime, pretty much, on how second semester went. Of course, if you made it this far, thank you for tuning in. I definitely do, again, plan on making more videos, so make sure you subscribe to my channel, as well as like this video, share it to others, because knowledge is power, man. And if I can help anybody who's interested in being a PTA, I would like to do that. So, but in order for these videos to go out, you guys definitely need to share these videos, as well as comment. Like, if there's like a topic that you want me to talk about, whether it's about PTA school or anything else that you will want my opinion on, please make sure to comment in the comment section below, or hit me up on my email. My email for this channel will be in the description down below. But talk to me, guys. Like, let's have a conversation in the comment section. Like, I promise you, I won't bite. I'm very friendly. I promise. With that all being said, thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next video.